What is up, party people, and welcome to Countdown to Classic. This is a podcast that educates, informs, and gossips about World of Warcraft Classic. Each week we discuss the news, hot button issues, and content of the highly anticipated Classic servers. I'm your host, Josh Corbett, and this is a show where it's not my opinion on World of Warcraft that counts, but yours. If you're new to the show, Countdown to Classic goes through your expert input on everything relating to the sure-to-be-amazing World of Warcraft Classic. Now, everyone, what will we be talking about today? Well, if you listen very, very closely, can you hear that? Do you hear that freight train coming our way? It's BlizzCon, baby! It's a scant 2 weeks away, and guess what? You know that Countdown to Classic is hopping a flight from Australia to be there, but not just as a fan, as a member of the media as well. So, in order to prepare for what might be coming our way, I've enlisted the help of a few devoted Countdown listeners to weigh in on some BlizzCon speculation and chatter, covering BlizzCon itself as an event, a splash of Diablo, and a hell of a lot of Classic. With me being at the actual event, you can look forward to a bunch of content from Countdown to Classic while I'm in the States, from October 27th through to November 6. And I'll be organising a bit of a get-together for Countdown fans in LA, as well as at Anaheim at the event while I'm in town, for those that would like to grab a drink, meet me, and talk some World of Warcraft. So do let me know, please, if you're in the area through either email or the Discord, and we'll put it all together. In the meantime, if you're enjoying these in-depth conversations that Countdown to Classic brings you on a regular basis, please do visit the show's Patreon page to see how you can help support Countdown to Classic continue to bring you more of the content that you're now so used to hearing on the show. Alternatively, you can also help the show by mentioning the show to a friend, perhaps in-game. Talk about what you hear on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, or wherever you actively discuss things. Follow me on Twitch at Countdown to Classic, or leave the show a review on iTunes. If you want to hit me up with some feedback or submit a memory lane or anger management of your own, you can always hit me up at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com as well. And if you can't get enough of me for some reason, then please do check out my other podcast, the actual good podcast, The Cinephiles. That's SINNERFILES.com, if you haven't already, for great comedic takes on all your favorite movies. Now, I do joke about that one being the good podcast, but that was my first baby. I talk about Countdown to Classic was kind of started up as a bit of a half-assed adventure. Imagine what I can do when I'm using my whole ass like I do on the Cinephiles. Please do go check it out if you haven't already. But with all that said, let's get to everything BlizzCon in today's Calling Countdown. All right, it's time for another call here at Countdown to Classic, and today we are once again doing a group call. Everyone's involved. There's arms and limbs flying everywhere. Mouths are going to be running off from all angles. And I've got three fantastic people here who I'm very excited to talk about everything and anything BlizzCon predictions. So one by one, let's go through it. Let's get a big hello from Palfuris, Countdown to Classic Discord mod. How are you, mate?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Glad to be here.
And we also have show regular Niel. How's it going?
Hey guys, what's up, man?
And finally, we have another return visitor to the show, Viv. What's happening, mate?
I'm good. Glad to be back on, as you call it, Countdown to Kisses.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to pick up on that one. Well, coming up on Countdown to Kisses, we have the following. We're going to be talking about everything and anything BlizzCon. So this episode I hope to air sometime around about the 15, 16, 17 of October. So it'll be about 2 weeks prior to BlizzCon. God, I'm on fire this morning. So with BlizzCon coming up, what we're going to be talking about is what we expect to see there. And we're going to go through this for about an hour or two. And every single person on this call is here for a very specific reason, because I wanted to cover all the different angles of people who are going to be involved in BlizzCon. So what's happening is Palfuris is actually going to be at BlizzCon in person with me. So we've got the live attendee and that angle covered. Next, we've got Viv, who's the holder of a virtual ticket. So he'll be sitting at home, watching live online and taking it all in, as many people will worldwide. So we've got that angle covered. And finally, we have Niel. As many of you know who listen to the show on a regular basis, Niel's been on a few times now, and Niel is our friend from a mysterious AAA studio, the studio that shall not be named, and he's here to provide a bit of inter-industry perspective on what he might expect to happen at BlizzCon with announcements regarding Classic, and also things that we might expect to see in the demo, and also things like guesstimations on ETAs and things like that. So we've kind of got the whole spectrum here being covered. So, boys, this is going to be a very, very casual chat. And at the end of the day, I just hope to cover off on what the fans are expecting. We've heard from the former developers recently on the show. Now let's get to the fans of Classic, the driving force behind the train that is helping to obviously bring this game into existence. So I'm going to start here. Let's talk sort of BlizzCon in general, and I'll start with you, Palfuris. You're going to the show. Have you been to a BlizzCon before?
I've never been to a BlizzCon before. I've been to a couple of cons. Probably the largest was PAX East, but that was actually years and years ago. So it's been a few years since I've been on the scene, and I'm really interested to see how things have evolved. Hopefully, hygiene has. We'll see.
And in saying that, what sort of held you back before?
Well, life has happened. As a lot of the folks on the Discord might know, I'm so old that I rode dinosaurs to school. And I have a daughter who is turning 8 relatively soon. So I've been busy with hearth and home and family.
Okay. Now, have you been to any kind of conventions like this before?
Dedicated to one publisher, no. Or I guess one development house, no. PAX East. And for those who may not be familiar, PAX is, the Penny Arcade Exposition. It started out on the West Coast and then it popped up on the East Coast, and I think it's all over at this point now, but they have lots of game demos and hell of a lot of gamers that show up to that. But nothing that's just dedicated to one entity in the games that they make. So it should be kind of interesting seeing that level of focus.
Definitely. Now, Viv, I'll turn to you. You're going to be watching online through a virtual ticket. Now, have you ever bought or dealt with virtual tickets before for BlizzCon?
I actually did. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but like right after the whole Nostalrius kerfuffle and like the whole media recognition of it, I guess, shutting down and all that, people were kind of expecting something to happen at that BlizzCon that came up. But it didn't happen. But back then I wasn't back in college or anything, so I had the money to freely do such things, not worry about it too much. But this year, thankfully, a friend of mine got me a ticket. So
having been through the virtual ticket experience before, you know what to expect. So like, are you happy with the way in which Blizzard presents the virtual ticket and the way in which they allow the fans to explore everything at home?
The first time I experienced it, like they had, I don't know, not the best content, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like a Weird Al concert, and then like
really,
yeah, that was at the beginning. That was pretty cool.
What did he open with? Like, Another One Rides the Bus, or what?
I don't remember. It's been a while, but yeah. But after that, it was kind of like lots of esports, and then like not many panels I actually really cared about because there's like no classic WoW, so
yeah.
And there wasn't really any that big announcements at that BlizzCon that I recall, at least. So I don't know. I wasn't overly thrilled with any of the things that were there, but this time it looks to be pretty exciting. I'm like actually pretty excited about even like Diablo and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another thing that everyone is obviously speculating, this huge potential Diablo announcement as well. And I won't get too far into it, but definitely the tinfoil hats are on when everyone sees that big opening Diablo chat scheduled straight after the opening ceremony. So Diablo fans are very, very excited about that. I'm not a big Diablo guy myself, but I'm waiting for a title to really suck me into that franchise. And I'm here for the taking, Diablo. Just come and get me. But I've only played Diablo 3 and it just wasn't for me. But I'm willing to give Diablo 2 a go if they remaster it. So we'll see what happens there. Now, Niel, I'll turn to you. As we've mentioned before on the show, you do work for a AAA studio, and I'm very familiar with their titles, and I enjoy their titles, and you've worked on some of them. Now, from an angle inside the industry, what's your take on what BlizzCon is and how they've gone about putting together this huge event purely for fans of one studio?
I think it's quite an accomplishment, really, because it means they have so many fans that are psyched that they're willing to pay plane tickets and, make hotel reservations in shady hotels because it's cheaper, and then get to the event and mingle with everybody. It's a testament of the legacy that Blizzard has created over the years. Because you don't see any like EA Con or the other companies, right? It's BlizzCon. So they made their own thing, and they're surfing it quite well.
Obviously, as I've said, we can't say the name of the studio that you work for, and I lovingly refer to it as sort of Voldemort, the studio that shall not be named. But do you secretly wish that the company you worked for had like a Voldemort con so that you could go and meet the fans every year?
I don't know. It would be cool, I guess, to meet the people that play the games. But, I don't know. I think I've spoken before on your show that I'm not a big fan of the games that my company makes.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to meet the people, but, strictly on that point, because, the games myself, I'm not that hyped about.
One last one for you, Niel, before we sort of go full circle here. In terms of attending BlizzCon, have you been before?
No, I've never been to BlizzCon. I've wanted to go for a while, but like Palfuris, life happened, kids and all that. So we were hoping to go this year, but no, it wasn't happening. Okay. And it sucks because looks like this year's the year, man.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to turn to now in terms of this one being a big one. Have you bought a virtual ticket before, or will you buy a virtual ticket this year?
Yeah, I've bought it this year. It's the first time. I'm going to say it's strictly for the demo. I'm that big of a turbo nerd, and yeah, that's it.
Well, let's get to that point of this year being a big one. And Palfuris, I'll turn to you soon, but I'll just go on a little bit of a diatribe myself here. Now, we've been saying for about 6 months now, the speculation of what's to come this year at BlizzCon, obviously with the announcement of Classic coming at the last one. And certainly starting up from around about, I want to say, April, May-ish on Countdown to Classic, I've certainly been saying that, and I'm not the only one to be saying this, there's many content creators using this sort of term, saying Classic Con. We're all expecting Classic Con. There's going to be a bombshell dropped. It's going to be great. But I took it a step further on the show and I said, not only is it going to be Classic Con, it's going to be Retro Con. And again, I'm far from the only corner of the internet saying this, but I'm really expecting Blizzard to embrace sort of walking down their own memory lane, if you will, at this convention in terms of remasters. I wouldn't be shocked if we're going to get a Diablo 2 remaster, a Warcraft 3 remaster. Obviously, we're getting the announcement and further details, not the announcement, just the further details about Classic. So I just sort of said it's really Blizzard embracing the past in a way, and it's something that's become so in vogue in the industry in terms of classic NESs, classic SNESs. Then Sony gets in on the fucking parade with the classic PlayStation that's coming out this December, which of course I pre-ordered because I'm a total sucker. But this is definitely, and we talk about it even traversing multiple areas of pop culture now in terms of movie, TV, video games, things like Stranger Things. The 80s is roaring back into fashion. Everyone wants to do retro now, and that's fantastic. So that's why RetroCon became a bit of a tag that I started to use. Now, Palfuris, I'll ask you this. Do you think, from your perspective, when you go there, you're expecting to go from stage to stage and see a bunch of different presentations on remasters coming your way?
Well, so my interests are limited to WoW and Diablo. Those are the two franchises that I'm really there to find out more about what's cooking. So I don't know if I'm necessarily going to go stage to stage hearing about remasters unless I go from stage to stage hearing about classic WoW and whatever they're going to announce for Diablo that may or may not be a remaster. So it would be nice to get that level of information on the two things that I'm passionate about, but I'm not exactly expecting it either.
So sorry, are you a big Diablo fan?
Yeah, so way back in the day, before I ever conceived of playing an MMO, I was a huge FPS guy, and for whatever reason that led into playing Diablo. Have no idea why. It may have just been that I was playing a lot of Quake and at my computer a lot, and somebody shoved a copy of Diablo at me, and I just sort of latched onto it. But yeah, I played the ever-living hell out of Diablo 1, and we LAN partied the shit out of Diablo 2.
Now, I promise we'll get to the classics talk soon, everyone. I'm just sort of covering BlizzCon in general just to open. But one last question just on that Diablo part, Palfuris. And we talk about in the recent dev interviews that we've had on the show, a couple of mentions of the fact that part of the original argument over which IP to use for World of Warcraft was obviously StarCraft or Warcraft. And there were these discussions between, developers saying, within the Blizzard offices going, well, should we do World of StarCraft or should we go fantasy? And one of the guys said that in the end, there was about a 90-10 split percentage-wise in terms of the vote for fantasy. But on top of that, we've also had speculation that, and it's a relatively minor call for this one, but some people say, well, what if they had have decided to do World of Diablo? And what if when World of Warcraft has its run, you get something like a World of Diablo? You still get the fantasy hit, but you get the different IP in a different universe. And I don't think they're going to be doing anything like that while WoW is up and running. I'm very, very adamant that Blizzard means what they say when they go, there's no fucking way that we're doing two MMOs at the same time. But let's say WoW has its run done at the end of the, in a few years' time. Would you be excited for something like a World of Diablo?
Wow. So that question leaves me feeling very conflicted because I really do love Diablo. For me, not, and let me back up. I did play a spot of EverQuest, but at that point I had a really crap computer with no sound card. So I listened to a lot of Our Lady Peace on repeat while having no sound card playing EverQuest. But what really drug me into WoW was that it was kind of whimsical, right? It had a lighter side to it. It could be dark. In fact, there's lots of dark things there. But there were some jokes, some puns, some things that made it a little bit lighter. And a Diablo MMO would just, I mean, if you think about the backstory of those games, it's pretty nasty. So, I don't know. I think I would have to play it just because I like Diablo so much, but I just don't know if it would have the same attraction for me that WoW did, just because, once again, it had that mix of light and dark. Maybe they could find a way to do it.
I think the only problem with World of Diablo would be the acronym would be WOD, and people would just curl into a ball and start crying.
But if they really killed it, then they could say Blizzard blew their wad.
Very true. Oh God, now I want it to happen. All right. Viv, let's turn to you. You sitting there with your virtual ticket in your hand. Palfuris has just mentioned that, he's not necessarily going to be, stage hopping too much, hoping for any kind of retro announcements or anything. But you're sitting there with the power to kind of, change cameras. And I haven't used the virtual ticket myself. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I can guess that, there's multiple cameras running around at all the different stages, and you just elect which one you want to focus on. And you can literally just be there in a second and go, I'm bored of this talk. Let's go over here, or let's go watch the esports, or whatever you might do. What's your plan for watching through the virtual ticket? Are you going to be quite eclectic with the way in which you jump from stage to stage, or have you got outside of the classic panel, obviously, have you got exactly what you want to watch and you're like, nope, I'm only watching these things, that'll be me?
Well, the beauty of the virtual ticket, as far as I remember at least, is that even if you don't get to see like everything right away, it stays like there. It's not just when it's happening, you can see it. But I do have a plan, assuming I get to actually not get swamped with college work and get to watch it when it's actually happening. I have a plan of like what I want to do. Basically how it works is like the schedule just is there. And like, if I remember right, like a time bar, like a vertical time bar goes through the schedule for whatever time it is currently in the BlizzCon. And you can kind of just like click on the different boxes that you see on the schedule. Like you can already see them right now. You just click on the box and it'll take you to that stream. So probably what I'll end up doing is the Diablo panel on the first day, followed by probably that Inside Blizzard, and then the Lorecraft, and then the World of Warcraft, what's next. And then, of course, the main attraction is on November 3rd, because that's restoring Classic WoW. I'm definitely watching that no matter what.
All right. Well, now that you've raised it, let's get into it. We've sort of teased everyone too long. Now let's talk Classic. Niel, you've obviously been keeping track as much as everyone else in terms of the news that we got recently with the demo. And I've spoken with former vanilla developers recently and asked them, what their thoughts are on the demo being ready and the way in which this is being delivered to us. Obviously, it's relatively unprecedented in terms of being delivered via the virtual ticket for people to use at home. Blizzard themselves have said, like, hey, this is the first time we're doing this, so bear with us. We're trying to get it right. From a developer's aspect, what were your thoughts with the announcement of the demo and the sort of technical aspect of trying to deliver that experience for people at home, not only the attendees on the floor at BlizzCon?
My first reaction was, wow, they're that far already. It's pretty much my initial reaction, because the last news we had was we made the first prototype, like running the old client, the old engine. We made it work, and now the new prototype, we're moving like everything to the new server, the new client, and we're hoping to make that work, right? That was the latest news we had. It's been now like 5 months later since then, 4 months. So in that gap, like either a lot of things happened or they happened beforehand, and like they're just now like really ready. So that was my first reaction. My second reaction was, holy shit, this could come out a lot sooner than I thought. Cause, having a demo means like you have a vertical slice of your product that, that's stable enough that you feel confident to put public, right? So that everyone can play it and it's all fine. But, it also means that, everything works, right? It's only a minor part of the content, but all the backend stuff, everything is there. So, to me, that means there's not much work left.
When you say there's not much work left, this has obviously been one of the greater points of speculation, is now if they've got a framework up and running to the point that they're quite comfortable showing it off to the world, what is left to do? So again, knowing what you know of the development of a big title, when you provide this, as you say, a slice of the game for us to not only play on the floor, but to take home and try for ourselves and, play for as many hours as you like over the course of a week that they're giving it to us. What do you feel this means for what's left to do, given that we're only getting 2 zones in the demo?
Basically what I think the demo is probably an internal beta that they did, and they just polished it as much as possible. And they said, hey, you know what? We could do that as a demo for BlizzCon. And then, and then it rolled out like that. So in terms of work that's left, I would, it's hard to guess. It could be like, all the systems are there, the combat's working, the loot is working, but maybe like there's some focus to be done on dungeons and raids. Maybe they just took care of the leveling aspect and the item drops and stuff like that, but maybe dungeons and raids are maybe being worked on a bit, because I don't know what went on into restoring the old database data, right? So maybe it was all there and, it just needs a little polish and everything works fine, right? Or maybe there's some, merging of tables to be done that's kind of quirky. So yeah, I would say not much work left. I would say like there's maybe, I'm going to throw a number here, like 20% of the work left. That's what I feel.
Okay. Well, when you say stuff like, 20% left and maybe there's just some merging of tables to do and data entry, blah, blah, blah. I put this to, I think it was Bo Bell over the weekend when I spoke to him, obviously being a former developer of the game. And I said very much so this, saying, the framework's done. Now it's just data entry left, right? Surely that means we're not far away. And he kindly reminded me because, I think he probably wanted to say it a different way, but he said it in a polite way. But I'll say it the way he probably wanted to say it, where it's like, dickhead, data entry is most of the work with video games. So, appreciating where that's like kind of statement might be coming from. When we go, it's just plugging in some numbers from here. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's just around the corner, right?
Oh no, you still need to validate everything and test everything and, make sure that all the systems work well together and, basically the experience works, right? But, my original estimate was November 2019. I'm prepared to lower that to like beginning of summer,
No, I love it. Welcome aboard the summer 2019 train. I've been there for a while, so it's good to have more people jumping on my carriage. Palfuris, I'll turn to you. When you heard the news of the demo and what's going to be involved with it, did it alter your estimations on when we're getting Classic?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that they have enough of a foundation in place that they feel confident they can put this out. I really feel like things are going to be much sooner than at least I was expecting. I feel like we'll probably still see a beta because there's, to me, and I'm not a developer of any sort, but to me it seems like there's a lot of things that are hard to anticipate or even test for unless you really let people go through more than just a 2-zone demo. But I think things have moved forward substantially.
Viv, if you allow me to I'll come back to Niel for one more question just before I get back to you. But Niel, now that Palfuris has raised, the potential with, it's sort of coming. We've now talked about it coming sooner, but there has been rumors out there, and they've been light. But people talking like, what if Blizzard just dropped the news that it's actually, we go to BlizzCon and it's actually going to be available in like 2 weeks, and they go like, psych, Classic's done. Oh my God, heads exploding. And Palfuris just mentioned the beta testing, and obviously there's still going to be a need for beta testing in his mind. So I'd ask you again as an industry veteran, and Kevin Jordan emphasized this in his interview with me where he said, no, there's going to be a lengthy beta phase. They can't skip that, essentially. I'm paraphrasing a little bit what he said, but do you agree that there is just no way that we're getting either no beta or, I know we're not getting no beta, I would guess, but even a short beta? Would you say it absolutely has to be a long beta phase, just like any other game?
Not absolutely. I'm not totally sold on the long beta because it depends how they merge the old, the old game with the new stuff, right? If it required a lot of work, of plugging stuff together and, making sure things work, that would make sense that we had a long beta to make sure that we cover everything. But if, the moving over was quite, I'm going to say easy, but, not that hard. Maybe it won't be that long of a beta. It's just, we're better off just thinking that, it will be a long beta and not being disappointed, but, it could be shorter than we think, maybe.
Now, Viv, you're going to be sitting at home with access to this demo about 3 hours after the opening ceremony, they've said. And you're going to have a very different experience, obviously, from the people enjoying BlizzCon in person. And Palfuris is going to be there. Palfuris and I are going to be there, walking around, living it up, meeting people and having a drink. But you know, the one thing we're missing out on is actually getting to play the demo really when it drops. Of course, we can line up and stuff when it happens on the floor, but, you know, we're all guessing it's going to be a pretty lengthy line and you might only get 20 minutes with the game or whatever. And then you might have to go back to your hotel room that night to have a good go of it. But you're going to get it pretty much straight away. So what are your plans once that access opens up to you? Are you sort of going to walk away from the virtual ticket for a couple of hours and dive straight into the demo, or how do you plan to do it?
Well, the beauty of 2 monitors is
there you
I'm
go.
planning on having one with the virtual ticket stream going. Probably have to try to play like Where's Waldo, spot the Josh and Palfuris during the classic streams and stuff.
I'll be easy to spot because I'm trying to get one for Palfuris as well, not to sort of put any pressure on him to wear it, but at least to take home. I'm trying to get a couple of big daggy Countdown to Classic t-shirts made up with the logo on the front. So if you see a dorky Australian guy walking around in a big black shirt with a big orange warrior on it saying Countdown to Classic, that'll be me.
Looking forward to playing Where's Waldo. It's always a fun game. But yeah, aside from that, definitely any moment of free time I get is going to be spent playing the demo, learning as much as I can about it, and just generally having fun and reporting back on Discord, you know, any questions people have about what's going on with it and stuff like that. It's going to be really fun.
All right. And when you dive into it, do you know already what, because we don't know what we're going to get. Obviously, everyone is speculating, Elwyn, Durotar, Westfall, Barons, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I tend to lean towards the Elwyn Forest and Durotar side of things, just because I think, Bo Bell raised a great point, when I asked him about this, when he said, well, think about the difference in size and time involved between, you know, the Barons and Westfall if they chose those zones. There's much more content in the Barons than there is in Westfall, so I don't think, he says he didn't think they would throw off the balance that way, and Elwyn Forest against Durotar made much more sense. But if we do get Elwyn Forest and Durotar, and we don't know what classes and races we're going to have access to, if they just do it as it is, what we expect in those starting zones, or if they just go, you know what, screw it, here's all the classes and all the races, you go nuts, but just into these 2 zones. What would you want to play when you open up that demo?
I mean, it depends, I guess, on whether they allow you to, just for purposes of the demo, play both factions, or how that's going to work. Because I guess if it was choose one faction like it actually is in Classic, I would probably make like a warrior, of course, because that's my jam. Or maybe a mage and a warrior. But yeah, probably just try to level like a human warrior in Elwyn and see if it's all the same as it used to be, and generally just kill some kobolds and take their candles.
You know, take candle. All right. Niel, I'll ask you. I heard you pipe up, obviously, a little bit excitedly when, I think that was you, when Viv mentioned that he's going to be playing a warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I presume you're going to be doing the same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, look, let's say we know that you're sort of, really pumped to get on there, that demo, start your warrior up. But when you do open up that demo for the first time, we don't know what's coming in terms of changes and no changes. What's the first thing that you're actually going to do once that you spawn in Elwyn Forest there? Are you going to run around and kill some mobs first, or are you going to dive into some menus and see what's going on?
First things first, I'm not going to roll Alliance because that's filthy.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm going to dissect the hell out of it. I'm most likely going to try combat first, see how that reacts, see how the new, the new server handles the combat, the auras, spell delays and stuff like that, because it was a lot different from back then. And I'm guessing those are the things that are most likely to change in the classic version. And yeah, I'm going to dissect everything, and I'm going to try every class I can, every race I can. Yeah, I'm going to play the hell out of it.
Now, I'm the weirdo who, and I don't think I'm the only one, but I'm the weirdo who starts up a game when I play my MMOs, when I play my JRPGs, and the first thing I do is open up menus, and I look at fucking everything that I've got access to before I even play the game, which is bizarre, I know, to some people.
I do the same thing, actually.
Oh, there you go. Like I was the guy who, and this is why I miss the days of video game manuals so much. I mean, obviously everything's digital now. All the instructions are in game. You open your menus, blah, blah, blah. And that's not why I go through menus. I go through it to just see how the game is being presented to me and what information I have access to. But I loved the old, really thick video game manuals that you got back in the day with my SNES games and stuff like that. Things like Secret of Mana, the massive Earthbound guide that you got that I would flick through. But I would always read page to page my manual before I started 1 minute of the game. I know some people throw the game in, fire it up. I don't care what the instruction manual says. I want to get straight into the game. I was the other way around. But I can tell you that I'll be going through, and I know Tips said this on a recent video of his as well, and I'm of the same ilk. I'll be opening up all the menus and just sort of tinkering around and seeing if there's any information there. And when I say that, obviously one of the first buttons I'm going to hit is that hotkey N, because I want to see what they've done with the talent trees and see if anything looks different. Now, it's going to take me a lot longer to figure out if anything is different because I'm a filthy casual, but to some people, things will scream out straight away, whether we're getting a carbon copy of vanilla or if, there's some new game-breaking talent in there that people can bitch about. But it'll all be a bit of fun. Palfuris, I'll ask you this question. Now, without going into details about what it is that you do for a living, I do know that you have some kind of knowledge of the way in which the internet works and networks and servers and things of that nature. Now, people are obviously saying that this is without coming out and officially saying it, we all kind of can guess that this is a great little stress test for Blizzard, so they can open up all these realms, see all these people jump on and see how their servers handle it. What do you think about the angle of Blizzard here, just in terms of testing what they've got? And do you think they're going to have any trouble? I mean, surely they've got it down to a science at this point, that how they run their servers, and they're not expecting any kind of craziness.
Yeah, so I'm going to caveat all of my comments by saying I have not extensively studied any information that may be publicly available about how Blizzard does this. So I'm sure there's some folks out there who have really, they just have a lust for understanding all things Blizzard and have unearthed some details, and I'm probably going to get some things wrong. I apologize in advance. With that said, I mean, we are at the point with technology, with data centers, with servers, where the servers themselves are more or less a commodity. I've seen large companies that really focus on hosting and other applications that are heavy in compute. Just when a server reaches the end of its life, or if it fails, they throw it away. They don't repair it. They don't try and upgrade it. It just gets pitched. That's what I'm talking about when I say it's a commodity. On top of that, we are in a point where most applications are virtualized. So I would be very surprised if the realms aren't actually riding on top of some type of VM. I don't really care what kind of vendor the VM's providing or who's providing it, whether it's VMware, Microsoft, who have you. It more than likely there's some level of virtualization in play. So if they need to bring up a new realm, more than likely they have extra capacity somewhere in a virtualized environment, so they can spin up another realm with relative ease. And if through sheer popularity they actually run out of compute resources, they most likely have some on standby that are backed up, ready to roll, and they can probably bring those online in short order. So technology has evolved way past back when WoW launched, and I think bringing new resources to bear will be pretty easy.
Now, are you expecting any kind of issues in terms of, we talked about, I said before that, Blizzard has got it down to a science, but they're still fallible in the way that I think there were, problems with Legion dropping. I think, sorry, not Legion, Battle for Azeroth dropping. I think there was a huge issue, if I remember correctly, when WoD dropped with the opening of the servers once the update went through. But in terms of queues and things like that and crashes or anything, are you expecting sort of any kind of problems? Or is it, I guess the better way to say it is this, are server issues upon launch of a game inevitable, and should we just expect and brace for this with the demo?
I think if you're realistic, you expect and brace. There's always the human factor, whether it's from external sources wanting to rain on everyone's parade, and there might be some type of a DOS attack, and Blizzard will obviously have measures in place to help mitigate those, but we've seen attacks in the past that have been so large. Companies that specialize in only providing denial of service protection are taken to their knees, and they've actually had to drop clients that they were protecting pro bono because it was screwing up their customers who were paying for that denial of service protection. And then you have factors that you can't exactly account for within. And it could be as simple as someone has a script that they've written and it might have a small mistake in it. And, oh gosh, I've just deleted all the environments instead of this one dev one that I wanted to take down. There's plenty of things that can happen that are bad. Obviously they'll probably have a change control, stoppage in place. So they're not allowed to make any large changes to the environment where all of the realms are being hosted or BattleNet or anything else. So that'll probably be kept to a minimum. I mean, we still can't rule it out, but it's maybe less of a factor. I'd still, really be worried of the denial of service angle. There's lots of people out there who either think it's funny to make people unhappy. They're pissed off at Blizzard for who knows what, or I don't know, it reasons. So could happen.
Okay. Now, Viv, let me ask you this one. You have played on private servers in the past. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. So have you been involved, I haven't asked you this before, have you been involved in the launch of a private server before?
Yeah. Not in Nostalrius. I came in like a little bit after that came out. But when Elysium came out afterward, I was in right away for that.
Okay. Well, when we talk about everyone dropping in at the same time on this demo and, everyone's sitting at home with their virtual tickets, I've got no doubt that they've sold a number of virtual tickets due to this classic demo being announced. It was very craftily done a little bit later down the track by Blizzard so that they could, I'm sure, gauge how many people might have bought the virtual ticket just for Classic, and they can get those figures back internally and then figure out what they're going to do with servers later down the track. But when we all spawn in these areas, are you expecting sort of private server mayhem, or do you think that no, they'll have server numbers in place, it's going to be pretty easy going in terms of grabbing mobs and spawn times and things like that? What are you expecting?
I've actually been expecting it to go better than private servers, because usually private servers, since they can't really afford to run multiple servers, they have especially at launch, they have like over 10,000 people playing in, it'll be, how like some races are more popular than other races. So there'll be like 1 million humans and 1 million orcs, all starting out in the same spot. So it's like horrible when a private server first comes out. You have to really race and get ahead of people, or you're just like it's so bad on private servers. People come out with like these crazy weird strategies to try to get ahead, that don't involve questing and stuff like that.
And that awkward moment when you spawn and there's 1 million male orcs and 3 female orcs and they're sitting around going, dude, ratio.
But, I feel like, the Blizzard version of the server, they're going to have a more realistic, cap. Maybe if it's not exactly like it was in vanilla, maybe just like 1,000 or 2,000 more is what I'm expecting for them to do. Hoping they'll do at least, because unlike retail WoW where they have all the servers basically merged in the open world. I have a feeling they're not going to do that, or at least I surely hope they don't do that in classic WoW. So yeah, I have a feeling they're going to try to go for, even in the demo, like the old school feeling of like 3,000, maybe more like 5,000 players. So I have a feeling, even though it's going to be crowded right away, that it's not going to be as bad as a private server.
Are you going to try and, I'm not sure if you mentioned, are you going to try and distance yourself from the group at all? Are you going to, try and do something that not everyone else is doing? Are you going to zip through it to try and get ahead of the pack so you don't deal with it as much, or what's your plan?
I don't think that's really a realistic option in the demo, just because there's really no end goal. Like, you're going to be stuck in the zone no matter what. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But even if I wanted to, like, I probably can't really just from other time commitments in real life. But the neckbeard in me really likes the idea of it, just because I love racing ahead, you know?
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, when I say racing, I mean like getting to Hogger first so that you're not waiting for that spawn. You're like sucked in, I got him, and, you know, it's all good.
Yeah, in a way, if I had more time right now, I would probably try to do it anyways, just as like practice, I guess. But I don't know. It's not too big of a concern of mine in the demo.
Niel,
just basically go in and do what Niel said he's going to do, and like just try to figure out everything about the demo and what implications it could have for the real game.
Well, this is my soulmate.
Pretty much.
Well, now that you mentioned what Neil's going to do, yes, Niel, I'll turn back to you. And we touched on very lightly before, you know, your plans for once you finally do dive into this demo, and you said you want to just start killing some mobs and getting stuck into it. But the one thing that we're all wondering is, I guess the question's going to be answered once we finally open this demo within the first couple of minutes, whether or not they went with changes or no changes. Now, what are you actually expecting, Niel, to see? Do you think that the first thing you're going to see when you fire up this demo is some updated textures and graphics? Do you think that you are going to have access to anything that wasn't there before? And do you think, I mean, I presume you're the kind of player that you're going to notice this stuff straight away. It's not going to take you 2 hours to figure out, oh yeah, they did change that.
Yeah, it's going to be easy to see what they changed. I'm pretty certain we're going to have some changes. It's inevitable. Merging over an old game to, you know, a new infra, new server, new client, and everything. There's bound to be some quirks there. But updated graphics or textures, I don't think so. I think if there's anything like graphic related that will be changed is maybe some spell effects or, you know, maybe some of the UI changes they've made with the game in the recent years. Like, if you have a quest to kill like 12 quillboars, then, you know, there's a little highlight under them that shows that you need to kill them, right? That it's there right now in BFA. Maybe that will be there. I don't know. Those are the things that might have changed, and maybe you can disable them. But the most likely things I'm expecting to change are like I said earlier, the combat interactions, the spell batching, stuff like that. Things that back then were there because of, you know, old design and the old servers, but now it's all fixed. It's all, you know, pretty smooth. So I'm expecting that to change the most.
Okay. Now,
I just want to throw out really quick.
Yep.
Hashtag save the moonwalk.
Very good point. Now, I'll be against you a little bit in what you've said, Niel, only in that I'm part of the camp that does expect slight graphical changes. I'm not saying I necessarily want them. I'm really honestly neither for nor against them. I just don't care. I just want the game. Whatever they do with the graphics, they do. But I am expecting updated textures, and I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I'm not expecting updated graphics, more just updated textures, and it's the one part of these, you know, stupid leaks that we talk about, and the next batch of leaks is coming on October 6th when, you know, the moon is high, and you know, just whatever weight you put into these purported leaks that are coming out from very dark, you know, small corners of the internet with Classic. The one point that I did agree with those leaks is that, like they say is coming, they said updated spell effects and updated textures. I actually am expecting that, just because, and I'm happy to be shouted down, don't get me wrong, but I just think that in a world where you're making this game and re-releasing it in a world full of, 4K monitors, blah, 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 I think they'll take a half step into the, updated technology with Classic in terms of putting a little bit of that Blizzard gloss on the product. And I'm not sure if they're going to be 100% comfortable introducing 2004 graphics in a 2018 world to the consumers. So, but that's just a personal take. That's just me. But Palfuris, I'll ask you this. Going off of what I just said, what changes and no changes are you expecting? Do you think that it will be a carbon copy, or do you think there'll be a couple of things coming your way? Or how will you react if the first thing you see when you log into this demo is the big glossy achievement banner come up and go, achievement unlocked, you've logged into the Classic demo? Will you freak out?
I will take my laptop and drop it out of the balcony of my hotel room. No, I'm kidding. It is what it is. I am at the point where I have lusted after this game for so long that I won't play exactly anything that they'll give me, but as long as it's pretty close, I will probably grin and bear it at least for a good long time. One thing I did want to maybe circle back on, we're talking about potentially having updated graphics. There was a posting, sometime back, and it's been talked about to death, but that did involve a position for Classic related to graphics and texture. So to me, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they've at least upscaled what we enjoyed in the past, and that could be a change that I don't know, I would at least look forward to. I wouldn't mind having the original models with up-res textures, still, the same or quite similar. That would be okay. I think, a lot of the other commonly cited things like colorblind mode, that's likely. I could see, Neil, I'm not sure if what you were getting at with some of the comments you were making about spells were that, maybe the system that they have in place to deal with, I guess would it be considered particles for the spell effects, had to be updated. So I could see the effects of spells being a little bit different or a lot different, more in line with what you see in the modern client, just because might be hard to shoehorn that back in. I don't know. I'm hoping there's no achievements. I can take or leave transmog or barbershop. I, once again, can grit my teeth and make it through, but it wasn't there the first time. In fact, I intentionally made my warrior super ugly in the first place because while I didn't really ever RP when I was setting the character up, I was thinking, he's a warrior. He needs to be super fugly. So let's make this guy look like he's had his face bitten into a few times. So I don't know.
I'm going to call you out on that one because I think you created the warrior as a very ugly character because we like to live alternate lives in our fantasy, characters, our MMORPGs, and create the opposite of what they are or what we are. So Palfuris, I'm just convinced now you are a beautiful man. You've gone with the opposite.
I am quite a catch.
20 charisma, straight up.
Now, Viv, piggybacking off of what Palfuris has just said, in terms of what you want versus what you expect, what do you think, if you had to nail down for this demo when you log in the changes that you'll see, go for it. What do you think?
Well, there's certain things that would definitely make me puke in my mouth a little bit, but it'd be all right, and I'd get over it. Kind of like Palfuris, grin and bear it. But I don't know. I expect definitely to see updated textures, even though the models will be the same. I don't know why, but I just think Blizzard will do that for sure. I don't know. I don't really expect overly many changes. Maybe that's just me being optimistic. But one thing I really don't want to see is like the spell effects or the animations of the characters actually being like modern WoW, or even the sound effects of the abilities, just because all that's so iconic and like infused in my brain, you know, like it's burnt in there, like my sizzly fireball that shoots out an unassuming form, you know. It's like, instead of this big flashy thing, you know, like a big flashy frost bolts and stuff from mages these days. But I don't know. And when I was playing my warrior on BFA when it first came out, I noticed like really chunky, like loud, like visceral sound effects for like every one of my abilities, to the point where like none of my abilities felt special. And I just miss the old sound effects. And I really hope they didn't change that kind of stuff specifically, just because I prefer it. Like, it's less distracting even to me when I'm playing, to not hear like, you know, like for every ability I use. I'm like, God, please stop. Just let me play the game in peace.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do. I hadn't even thought of the sound effects. That's a really good point. We all sit here and we talk about graphics so much, and given that I'm a podcaster, I probably should have thrown some minds to what they might do with the audio, but that's a great point.
And I get really hyper aware of audio in any game I'm playing. So, yeah. Definitely.
Well, you're a musician, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you keep that ear out. Look, yeah. I've just been reminded, by the way, in Twitch chat that someone said to me that listener Clownster has said that Josh, you're not going to be able to open up the talent tree until you hit level 10. So yes, as a filthy casual, I forgot that, and that really bums me out a little bit. Now I'll have to get to level 10 as soon as possible. But Niel, I'll ask you this: outside of the whole changes versus no changes thing, in terms of we're sitting here now wondering what Blizzard's going to say to us when they get on that stage during the 45-minute classic panel that we're going to get late into the second day. And I've been joking that, well, you saved the best for last classic panel towards the end of the second day. What information are you expecting we'll get during that panel? Do you think that we're going to get a beta release date? Do you think that we're going to get an actual proper release date or anything like that? What do you think they're going to sit down and tell us outside of, I'm sure we'll get information on it, how they went through making the game, a la what we got in the water cooler. But on top of that, what are you expecting to hear?
Before I answer that question, I'd like to go on the previous point that we were talking about textures and models. I just want to point out that it's really hard to put updated textures on old models, because they're made hand in hand, and it's basically mapped on a specific thing. So if you want to put updated textures on old models, you have either to tweak the textures or tweak the models. So it's not an easy task. So we may not see or have updated models. You know, it's just it's a touchy thing.
Good point.
Okay, so if we get a release date, I'm guessing it will be at the opening ceremony and not during that panel.
Okay.
Because I'm most likely thinking of having like 2 or 3 developers from the classic team there for that panel, and just explaining what was the philosophy of restoring classic, what direction they took and why they took it, and blah blah blah. I think that's most of what we're going to get.
Do you think that there's anything particularly strange about the way that Blizzard has dealt with Classic up to this point? Or do you think it's all pretty much in line with the way in which developers or studios might deal with things? So Kevin Jordan came on recently and reminded us that, hey, what's happening is probably, well, I'm paraphrasing again, but he said that Blizzard is not in the job of announcing things 5 years before they're ready. He said, when they tell you about something, it's not going to be that far away, generally speaking. You know, we're talking like a year or two, not what some developers do and go, hey, we've come up with a concept and now we're going to get to work on it. And it's, guess what, coming to you in 2037. That's not Blizzard's MO. So do you feel that the way in which we've been sort of dripped this information very, very slowly, very, very lightly, with just, you know, the interview in January and the announcement in November, the interview in January in Forbes in Forbes's online site. Then we got the Dev Water Cooler in the middle of June. Now we got the demo announcement at the end of September. Do you think that there's anything strange in the way that Blizzard has done this, or it's all pretty much, you know, regular?
It's not strange per se, but I might explain the way they're doing it as to the nature of the classic fan base. We're quite a volatile gang. We're very vocal about what we want.
Yeah, get fucked.
And, yeah.
They're not
so
volatile.
I'm guessing they don't want to take the heat that much. So, they're going slowly, and making sure they drop information that's not going to rile up everybody. So, yeah, I think that would explain how they're doing it.
Palfuris, can you fucking believe this guy saying that we're fucking volatile? Jesus Christ, the fucking
That's
mouth
a load
on this
of
guy.
horse shit if I ever heard it.
No changes.
We're completely rational centered fans. Come on now. Well,
So I am going to wear a changes shirt one of the days and see what happens.
oh God, please
Prepare
do.
to be pitchfork and torch.
Please do.
Oh, I'm going to bring a mouthpiece and a couple rolls of quarters. It's on.
No, I will happily roll around with you on that day to see what goes on once you wear that shirt. So that'll be good fun. Well, that's a really good point you've actually raised there, Palfuris, in terms of interactions with other fans around BlizzCon itself. I've been sort of wondering to myself, I've never been to a BlizzCon. I've never been to any kind of convention like this before. So it's really something that I'm looking forward to, but also going to be, I'm sure, a massive eye-opening experience for me in terms of the culture that I'm about to walk into, that I've sort of passively been a part of for so many years now, but never actually stepped out into the real world and met people who have the same likes and interests that I have with gaming and MMOs and things like that. I'm a jock on the outside. I play rugby, I play basketball. I'm literally leaving in about 2 hours to go on a week-long basketball tournament in Melbourne. And I'll be drinking to excess and playing basketball every day with a hangover with some of the, blokiest blokes that you could meet, blah, blah, blah. And none of them know that behind closed doors, I sort of am this huge, proud, geek in a way. And I'm finally stepping out and I'm going to a convention. I'm going to meet people who are just like me, which I'm really excited about. And I would ask you, Palfuris, in terms of mixing it up with other people, you talked about the changes shirt. Are you expecting there to be heated discussions amongst the fans at BlizzCon? Is it going to turn into drinking at the bar and going like, changes, no changes, fuck you, I want this? Or is it everyone's nice, everyone gets along? I'm sure that's how it is, but do you talk to other people? Do you go there to meet as many people as you can? Or do you want to just, take it all in sort of quietly?
So yeah, the way I look at it is, gaming has gotten so huge now. It's not like when I was a child and we had to go uphill both ways to the store to rent NES games. It's much more mainstream. There's all types of gamers now, as to steal Niel's term. There's turbo nerds like us. There's also people who are just, they're into gaming and they enjoy it. And there are people who are, into WoW, right? And it's all shapes, all sizes, all types of people. I'm sure there will be some raging pricks there. I think when you remove the online element out of it and you have to stare someone in the eye, look at them in the face, I think people tend to become civil much more quickly. Yeah. So I think there's going to be maybe some heated debate, and I mean that in the truest sense of that statement, in that people are going to go back and forth, but in the end, they'll lift a cup and say cheers and move on, or, clap each other on the back and go their separate ways. So I think in that regard, it's going to be pretty fun for everybody to interact in that regard. Myself, I go to these things for the spectacle, because it's amazing to see, this large group of people dedicated to this cause, right? And in this case, it's the games that Blizzard makes and the culture that they've built up over all of these years. But the cosplayers, the people who once again come in all types. I've seen people just for no reason sit down on the floor and start beatboxing Mega Man 2 songs from
There you go.
Yeah, much similar to what I've seen. There may be a couple of extra beats thrown in there, but but it's just an amazing experience to go to these things. So that's really what I'm looking for. Once again, the spectacle, the camaraderie. Hey, we're all here for a reason. Let's chat, right? And I do like to drink. That's no secret. So I'll be doing that some.
Definitely. Well, I know my beatboxing needs some work, but I too like a drink, Viv. And as I said, I'm literally going away for a week soon to do nothing but drink. And so I intend to very much so do the same at BlizzCon. And it's funny because I've been saying to everyone that I've been talking about going to BlizzCon with, I'm like, I'll see you at the bar. Let's have a drink. And I shouldn't do this, but I just presume everyone sort of enjoys a drink when I know people don't drink, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm very much so looking forward to that social, like when the sun goes down, that's when BlizzCon kind of will start for me, because I want to rub shoulders with people at the bar and sort of see people let their hair down, talk about games, have a bit of fun, have a couple of pops in them, and see them run their mouths about what they really think about some of the Blizzard franchises and things like that. It'll be really, really interesting. But Niel brought up an interesting point when he goes, we are considered at times somewhat of a, how to best put this, interesting bunch.
Ragers.
Well, I don't want to say antagonistic. I don't want to say vitriolic or anything like that, but we are a passionate fan base, and we do get somewhat of a tag from perhaps people who like modern World of Warcraft that, we maybe go over a bit over the top at times. And, I feel like they're talking a bit about a loud minority of classic fans, but then classic fans, throw the same barbs at modern fans saying, well, you guys say some pretty nasty stuff to us too. But again, it's a vocal minority. But when we actually get there, Palfuris, are you expecting any kind of weirdness between modern fans and classic fans? Or, I'm just presuming it turns into a massive love fest and no one gives a shit.
Once again, there may be a few outliers who are just absolute raging pricks, but I think everybody's going to be pretty friendly when they're face to face. That just seems, this is my observation, is that when people are online, their aggression goes through the roof. They enjoy, it's probably an adrenaline rush to seek that confrontation and to pick the fight. In person, getting punched in the nose isn't fun. I don't know if anybody's ever tried it, but more than likely everybody's going to be pretty relaxed and chill when face to face. So I don't really see there being a lot of headbutting. Maybe some friendly barbs thrown back and forth, but I think that's kind of in fun.
No.
What about a nice tavern brawl from all the drinking?
Oh man, I'd love to hear that.
Well, look, let's just say that if you see Palfuris and I's mugshots on like this morning of the second day of BlizzCon, you'll know why. You've heard that we've been going there for a drink, and I think. What's the best, are we going to do like a Tango and Cash impersonation at the bar or something, Palfuris?
Who's Tango and who's Cash?
Who do you want to be? I'm happy with either. I think maybe you're more Sly and I'm more Kurt Russell.
All right, fair enough. And then, we can pivot off of that, and day 2 you could be Snake Plissken, and I'll have to figure out who I am, based off of that. It would have to be another Stallone
Surely
character.
Surely you'd be Liquid. Well, sorry. I was going to, going off of the Snake thing, I was going to say we'll go even further and let's just turn you into Liquid Snake because you'll be drinking so much from the Metal Gear franchise. But Viv, I'll turn back to you, and again, sitting at home there with your virtual ticket, you'll be watching everything, I'm sure. Now, are you outside of the classic panel? Have you got anything circled on your schedule?
Yeah, actually the way it works is like you can fill in a star on anything you want to watch. So I have plenty of stars filled in for things.
Now, I'm sure one of those stars is for the What's Next with World of Warcraft panel. I think it's worded something like that.
Yep.
Now, personally, I'm not expecting any classic chat in that one if they have a dedicated classic panel. What do you think? What are you expecting to see in that one?
Yeah, I'm definitely expecting it to be like here's the the ways we're going to improve BFA kind of panel personally. I think they specifically usually stick to, like, they very, very closely stick to whatever it is they had planned to talk about in anything they ever do. Just like, you know, like people used to spam legacy in the Q&As for Legion and stuff. But yeah, they just pretty much are very good at ignoring anything that isn't whatever it is they had planned to talk about in a given moment. So
now, Viv, did you check out BFA, or are you playing BFA at the moment?
I played it for the first month, and then got so involved in college that my subscription time ran out, and I was just like, well, realistically, I'm going to play this for like 1 hour every 3 nights, if even that. So it's not really worth the money right now.
Given that you didn't have too much involvement with it, but still checked it out, do you keep tabs on some of the gripes and moans that are starting to surface with BFA? Do you understand what people are talking about, or have you not cared less in that regard?
I've heard some things. I'm trying to remember specifically what they were, but something about like the Azerite traits kind of sucking and like not being very fun and stuff like that.
Well, that's exactly right. And there's a lot of bitching and moaning about Azerite. There's a lot of bitching and moaning about there being a perceived lack of content. You know, obviously prior to this patch 8.1, I think that's coming. And for God's sakes, if I say anything wrong, please yell out, because I'm not playing BFA and it's sort of all flying over my head to a certain extent. But Niel, I'll turn to you and ask you, Blizzard has come under fire a little bit lately with what's happening with BFA. And, you know, it's fun when we talk about, again, you mentioned classic fans being a little bit, testy at times, but I think that the BFA fans are showing their testiness a little bit as well with some of the, less than polite things that are being said at certain places online about how Blizzard's handled BFA. In terms of the way in which Blizzard will be addressing these two major titles that they're dealing with now, Classic and BFA. And obviously they've got other things they work on. They've got, you know, Hearthstone, they've got a Diablo, whatever potential Diablo game is coming, Overwatch, all that jazz. So I'm not just saying that this is it for Blizzard, but keeping in mind in terms of MMOs, they're now juggling Classic, they're now juggling BFA. People are starting to speculate that, and I know I'm going over the top when I say this, and I'm not trying to give much credence to these kinds of rumors and speculation, but it's fun to talk about. People speculate now that, with all the problems with BFA, maybe this is where it starts to turn downhill for WoW, and people might say, well, it's been going downhill for a little bit, or, you know, obviously subscription numbers are decreasing. Maybe they're trying to wind it down, which I think is ridiculous. You don't try and wind down something that's so successful. But I'll ask you this. Blizzard's focus right now, once they release Classic, do you think that they'll pay much attention to it, or do you think that they'll very much so try to bolster the modern game and obviously put all their resources into buffing this one back up to its glory days?
I think they're quite curious to see what will happen with Classic. I think they're in for a bit of a surprise, I think. But of course they're going to continue with WoW. That's a sure thing. The project is staffed, to spit out as much content as it can. But they'll definitely keep an eye on Classic, and we'll see how that talks, right? How the success of Classic will talk, and if it influences anything, I don't know. Like if it's gonna influence like retail WoW, I don't know. Maybe it will influence other decisions on other projects, maybe. But on WoW, I'm not sure. They've spent the last years changing the systems of WoW to make sure they're really accessible. They're really, like everyone can have epics and everyone can have anything. That's the direction. That's the the direction they took, right? So I don't see that changing drastically anytime soon. It would be too drastic a change for the people that came for that kind of gameplay. So I'm guessing if it influences anything, it will be on another project, or maybe, you know, they're continue on for TBC Classic or stuff like that.
I think it's going to most likely, if it does as well as I'm expecting it to, like I actually expect it to be more popular than retail WoW, at least for a good bit of time. But I think it's going to actually pretty much like influence the way other MMO developers, like upcoming MMO developers, decide to make their games. Like I think that's what's going to influence the most in the market.
I agree with you on that one. I've balked in the past, and I still would kind of balk at the notion that it will sort of surpass the popularity of retail, because in my mind, when I hear that, I'm putting together the numbers and I'm like, all right, everyone guesstimates retail at the moment to have somewhere between 3 to 5 million players. If Classic were to surpass that, we're talking about Classic having somewhere in the realm of 3, 4, 5, 6 million players. And personally, I'm not quite sure if we're going to reach those lofty heights, but who knows? But I do agree with the second point that you brought up there, Viv, that the influence this game could potentially have on the industry itself. And Niel, I'll turn back to you for comments on that one, in terms of future MMO development, or just the attitude that game companies have to old school values in their RPGs or MMOs in general. Niel, do you expect this to have some kind of a ripple effect if Classic does take off?
Maybe, yeah, because we're starting to see a comeback of old design philosophies, right?
Yep.
We saw the popularity of Dark Souls, for instance, and stuff like that. So maybe there's some developers out there who say, well, making an MMO is costly, it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of content to do, and it's a big risk because, you know, there's WoW and people play that, and you know, there's Final Fantasy 14 also, and you know, why would we make a game when the market's saturated? But if Classic does well, then it speaks to, you know, those old design philosophies that are not present anymore, and maybe that sparks an interest into making more games, more of these MMOs, maybe.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed the kind of the retro feel it's been taking over lately, and you talk about you know, new sort of new games coming out with old philosophies, and something that I've always pointed to is a game like Shovel Knight, which I really, really enjoyed, and talk about taking a step back into the day with you know, your old school platformers in a way, but still presenting it to in a kind of modern, funky way. I really enjoyed that, and you know, the same people that sort of bitch and moan about why would Blizzard want to take a step back with Classic? You know, the whole point of making games is innovation and moving the industry forward. Why are we being so steeped in the past? I just feel like, and it's an argument that comes up often, you know, are those same people, you know, are you playing Shovel Knight? Are you playing games like Skyrim remastered and you know, Shadow of the Colossus remastered and stuff like that? If you are enjoying things from the past, you're sitting there with a SNES Classic on your in front of your TV, because if you are, it kind of flies in the face of what you're saying. You do want to enjoy old games, but not this particular one. And I get that MMOs are supposed to be a living, growing entity, but I've got no problem, obviously, given what I do, but I've got no problem taking a step back with an MMO as well, being a revisit to the past via something like a remaster or a re-release. So I'll get you to all comment on that if I can, one by one, starting with you, Niel. What do you think of that?
You know, it's people still play chess and checkers, right?
Yep.
It's not about nostalgia or rose tinted glasses. It's just because it works, right? It's just an efficient design. It's fun and people like it, and that's it, right? There's nothing else there. So to me, people, why they go back to playing like Mega Man X or stuff like that, it's not because, you know, it's nostalgia. Okay, it might be a bit, but it's still because the systems there are so well made that, you know, you really like that. You know, I still watch old movies, you know, it's because I like the way they're made. You know, like there could be new games with I'm going to say old philosophies, but there might be just good philosophies. You know, it's not about being old. It's about being good and efficient. So, I think most game developers need to be more aware of that, you know, like aware of the good design choices and, you know, what worked in the past and build on that and not try to reinvent the wheel every time.
Now, Niel, that's a fantastic point. Can I please have your permission to steal that chess and checkers line? That's fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you, Palfuris. How do you feel about chess and checkers?
I feel like you shouldn't let Niel go first anymore. Holy shit.
Yeah, follow that one up, big guy.
Yeah, all I can say is, you know, I really echo a lot of what Niel said in that there are some things that have been done so well that there's really neither room to improve upon them nor need. And it may be a little bit of both of those that we're seeing in the quote unquote retro renaissance. And I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If it was a lot of fun to play 5, 10, 15, however many years ago, does it need to be improved upon significantly? Yeah, maybe some graphics tweaks will be fun. Maybe we'll add a choice when it comes to slightly different input, but do we need to futz with the core gameplay? I'd say no.
Viv, I'll know you will have something up your sleeve that hasn't been said yet in terms of, you know, developers readdressing this renaissance of re-releasing games and the people that say, you know, why would you play World of Warcraft Classic? That's stupid. But then they might also own remastered games at the same time. How do you feel about it all?
I have so many thoughts about this that I'm not sure I can say them all.
Blurt it all out.
So basically, the way I view life in general, okay,
here we
is
go.
that there are always people who like different things. Okay, if something is proven to have a market for it, and that market is now underserved, there will always be, even young people who never experienced it before, there will be new young people who prefer that kind of thing and don't know it yet. Okay? So people don't actually realize that they're fighting against themselves the way they argue for, like, why would you bring that back? You know, they're robbing themselves of an opportunity to try something that doesn't really exist much anymore. Maybe due to like just a lack of experience of them ever playing those type of games or whatever. But for instance, you were talking about a perceived lack of content and people complaining about it in BFA. Well, the reason there's a perceived lack of content in BFA is because the design philosophy is so different now that you get like immediate rewards. Okay. So like in classic WoW, even if there wasn't more content actually to do, which in my opinion, like is one of the most content rich eras of WoW. But anyways, even if there wasn't, people respond to carrot on a stick. Like people respond to not having the rewards yet. And it brings a longevity to the content that doesn't exist anymore in gaming in general, let alone World of Warcraft, for the most part, in any like multiplayer social game. So really, bottom line is, if you want to have a long, wonderful MMO experience, make it last. That's pretty much it. Like people don't realize they're going against their own potential, like, ability to continually have fun and not have these big content droughts and everything. Because really what a content drought is okay, we experienced everything and got everything too fast, and now we're waiting. That didn't exist in vanilla because it actually took a while to really get through all the content, just let alone all the other reasons, but just looking at the reward system.
Now, just to tie off, and it's a slight tangent here, but again, I want to get all of your thoughts on this. And even though we've lightly addressed it there, we'll just dive into it a bit more. And it's a topic that I haven't brought up on the show for a while. And I realize I am diverging from BlizzCon talk here, but you've kicked up sort of the argumentative side of me, which I have come out on a daily basis given what I do professionally. But you said that word nostalgia, a few of you again, and one of my biggest pet peeve arguments with the release of Classic WoW from naysayers is, that one that we hear so often. It's nostalgia, it's rose-tinted glasses, you don't know what you want. And it is sort of the evolution of that you think you do, but you don't line, in terms of you don't know what you want. You have these rose-tinted glasses on, and you're very quickly going to realize that this game is shit and Classic will fail. And I have the same opinion that many people raise in retort to that. And that's, I know it's not nostalgia because I have played it recently and I fucking enjoyed it, and I can't wait to dive into private servers and get on, and I still go, and I keep coming back for more. I'm playing the game now. Now, I appreciate if they're saying that for people who haven't touched the game in 14 years and might have their memories be a little bit hazy. That might be an argument to make there, but many of us have still had access to the game, albeit through, shady, nefarious means, but we've done it. And I don't play games strictly out of rose-tinted, while wearing rose-tinted glasses that aren't good, because they're not good. And I'll give you some examples. And Niel, sorry, I will turn to you to answer this one first. So get ready for this, but I'll fire off these examples. I've talked about the SNES Classic and the NES Classic a few times. And whilst I bought these products, I actually didn't really spend that much time with them, and I didn't enjoy them as much as I thought I would. That was rose-tinted glasses, because I'd fire up my NES Classic and I'm like, let's play some Mario Brothers. And I get over it in about 15 minutes going, oh yeah, I don't really like this game anymore. I fire up my SNES Classic, and, some people might gasp in shock at what I'm about to say, but, something like A Link to the Past, which is, God, one of my fondest games of all time. I played the shit out of that. I'll never forget. That was the game that my dad bought me my SNES when it came out, and he gave it to me with A Link to the Past. I think it had been out for a while when I got it, and I finally got one, and I got A Link to the Past, and I'll never forget that Christmas, opening that up and playing Zelda so much. But I go back and play A Link to the Past now, and even though that's a beloved game, I tap out very fucking quickly because I'm like, no, not for me anymore. That's nostalgia based, those memories. I do not get that with World of Warcraft vanilla. I don't at all, because I keep creating new characters and I keep having fun with it. So if I'm being pushed to play the game over and over again for countless hours, how can you say to me that I don't know what I like, that's purely a nostalgia-based desire? Because I say it's the quality of the game that pushes me forward. So sorry for that long-winded rant, but guys, do you have anything to add, starting with Niel, on that particular argument, and how does it make you feel when people say to you, you don't know what you want, you're just talking about nostalgia?
Well, the best argument to counter the nostalgia thing is, if it was nostalgia, there wouldn't be vanilla private servers, because there would be BFA private servers, right? That would be, it would be people that are looking to play for free, and that's it. But there are vanilla private servers, there are TBC private servers, and that's because that's what they like. It's the end of discussion. It's not, if it would be only nostalgia, people would play for like an hour and go, yeah, that was cool, I remember, but yeah, okay, I'm gonna go play BFA now,
Okay, Palfuris, what about you? Now, I appreciate that I was speaking in relatively soft tones, but when I heard you guys say that word nostalgia again a few times, it just triggered me, and I wanted to get that out of my system. What do you have to add to that when people come at you, or when you read in forums, people who might be anti-classic and saying to you, no, dude, take the rose-tinted glasses off?
I think it's very difficult to make an argument to say it's purely nostalgia that drives folks like us to want to play the game. There are so many games within the game. I think it comes up quite often on the Discord. Well, the real game is PvP. or you've had interviews where the real game for people was the auction house. People get into fishing, herbing, mining, all the professions. There are so many levels of depth to the game. And that's outside of even just the different racials and the different classes that you can get into playing. And then let's not even, go down the road of all the specs that you can play, whether they can be argued that they're viable or not. It doesn't matter. If somebody's having fun, it's fun. So does that mean it's nostalgia, or does that mean it's fun, which is why we play games, right?
Mm-hmm. And Viv, we'll get you to round off this argument.
So it just goes back to what I was saying. Like, there is a market for any type of individual. Like, everyone has different preferences. There will always be people who like tacos. There will always be people who hate tacos. There will always be people that love pizza. There will always be people that hate pizza. There'll be people like me who love pineapples on their pizza, and there'll be people who vomit in their mouth a little bit when they think about pineapples on their pizza.
The deal's off, man.
There goes the soulmate line.
It's all right. I also like all meat pizzas, But anyways, yeah, the point is, there's an experience for anyone. Like, there'll be people who do like it, there'll be people that don't like it. What I would say is, unless you've played Vanilla WoW, you can't really accuse people of not knowing what they want when you don't technically even know what you want, because unless you've experienced it, you've only experienced the one design style. You don't know what you prefer. That's just the way it is.
Well said. All right, guys. Well, look, I'll get us back on track, and we'll finish things up just with a couple of final notes on BlizzCon itself. Now, Niel, if I was to tie you down and say, let's bang out your dot points of predictions. Have you got 2, 3, 4, 5 dot points of what you think is going to happen when we get given this demo and when they talk Classic?
Okay, so my top points will be I'm 50% sure we're gonna get a release date. 50% sure. My second point would be, I'm pretty sure there's going to be changes to the game in terms of like I said earlier, the combat, the spells, spell batching, latency and stuff like that. That's going to be different for sure. And the other thing is, for the Classic panel, I'm expecting them to really dig into the philosophy that they took into restoring it, and really, like, what are the decisions they made and why they made it. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, Palfuris, hit me. Predictions.
So my predictions, one of them is realistic and a few of them are not realistic, because I enjoy Flights of Fancy. The first is, we will get a release date. It may not be close. It may be close. We'll have to find out. But we will hear when it's coming. My unrealistic expectations are, J. Allen Brack will be dressed as a pink and pretty princess handing out vanilla ice cream. And I can't wait for that to happen. That's
Wow.
going to be wonderful.
One can only hope.
Yes. My other unrealistic expectation, which is the one that I've just deep down inside, I'm hoping it will happen. During the Classic panel, they will have an Oprah Winfrey moment where they will say, reach underneath your seats. All of you are getting a key to the beta. Yes. You get a key to the beta. You get a key to the beta. Yes.
Oh, well, that's a wet dream, man.
That's actually, you know what?
And then after that, they announce WAD.
That's something. I can't wait for WAD. Yes. Now, that's something that I think is actually not that unrealistic. There's been a bit of speculation from myself and other people on that one, going like, we're all going to rock up. If you're there at BlizzCon, if you bought a virtual ticket, if you're getting involved in the demo, then that will come hand in hand with access to the beta. But who knows? We can only dream. But I think that an Oprah moment like that would be a shitload of fun. And I think that, honestly, there's a lot of fun things that Blizzard could do PR-wise that I don't know if they take the most of their opportunities at times, but, one can only hope. Viv, how about you? Predictions?
All right, so Diablo 4, Warcraft 3, and probably Diablo 2 remasters.
Yep.
And then for good old World of Warcraft, I'm expecting probably there's going to be some like extra thing that they talk about, like besides the release date that nobody was expecting. I can't really say what it would be, but I just have this feeling there's going to be something nobody was expecting, like maybe someone that comes out on stage, and it's going to be like the new designers of the game, and everyone will be like amazed at who it is or something. I feel like something like that's going to happen too.
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, I'm on board with that one as well. I think we are going to meet the team, and I think it's about fucking time, to be honest with you, because it's strange having these sort of faceless people behind this game that we're all putting so much attention to, and also just not providing, I mean, not a point of contact. We don't expect to be involved in a chat with these people, but just at least to know sort of who's in charge, what we can then speculate on what kind of direction it might take, blah, blah, blah. And people have been saying recently with the news when J. Allen Brack came out and was announced as president the other day, and Mike Morhaime stepping down, the attachment to that news was that Alan Adham is now back in a advisory or executive role of some description. And people are saying, well, that means he's on Classic. And I'm not so convinced. I think he's on something else, given that he's a designer and not a developer. I think he's probably tinkering with the framework of a brand new concept over there. But I wouldn't be shocked if we got a presentation and going, well, here's your team. And I don't expect Alan Adham to walk out, but I do expect there to be a name or two that will go like, oh, wow, that person was on the team. That's fantastic. So that'll be great to see. And sort of, I really do think as well that we should have a different, and when I say, again, back to that term of a point of contact, a different face, a different point of contact to the classic game. And I think that, this is not, I'm not in the business of taking a swipe at Ian or J. Allen Brack at all, but they are very much so associated with the modern game. And I think that classic players, it would be, smart for Blizzard to give us a different face and a different personality to associate with classic from a pure, again,
Agreed.
Public relations standpoint and community, reach out standpoint. Just say, look, these are your people. They are working for you. Go and hassle them from now on. Do you know what I mean? I just think that it would be strange if they continue to have Ian, because obviously Jay will be doing presidential duties from now on, so I'm sure that he'll take a step to the side, but it'll be strange to have Ian continue to do the classic announcements. I've got no particular problem with Ian, but I just think it would make sense to have someone else. What do you guys think about that?
I completely agree with that. I've been thinking that for a while, actually. It kind of gives everyone the wrong idea. Like, I've heard like people who only play retail complaining about that, as well as people who play classic. So like people who play retail are like thinking, that it's taking away time from classic because they're the ones announcing all this stuff, and then the reverse, what you said, like people in classic are kind of like wondering, well, who's our real spokesperson, who's making this game, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Man, it's going to take some serious balls to show your face on the classic project. Say, like, I'm responsible for this. Dude, man, the fans are going to be so like, they're going to scrutinize everything. And these poor souls, man, I hope they don't have a Twitter or Facebook or, stuff like that, because, oh shit.
Maybe that's actually a thing that I was wondering. Would they be best served if they did a slow introduction where, for a while, it's not just the new faces, it's new and old collaboratively up there, and they sort of then slowly tiptoe back after some period of time. And I don't just mean while they're on stage. That would be a really cruel thing to do, just to slink back into the shadows. But I mean, over a period of months, weeks or months, where it goes from, okay, united front to, okay, new guys getting more and more, or gal is getting more and more face time and responsibility, and eventually it's their show. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. And I think that, there is, we've talked about it already a few times through this chat, the perception that classic fans will be sitting there, in the hall with rotten fruit in hand, ready to go for whatever news we might get. But I think for the most part, we're pretty positive, hopeful, people. And that, if we were to get introduced to a team, even if it is just in a piecemeal fashion, like you've suggested, Palfuris, I think that would be a great idea. Yeah, they don't need to, trawl out the whole team. Like, just, here's one or two guys. Hey, we're part of a big team that are working on it, and we're here to answer your questions. That would be fun.
It would be nice to finally, have some faces and, be able to figure out who's working on it. And, it was rumored a while back that, an old dev from back in the day, like I think Vanilla or TBC is working on Classic. So if we have that confirmed, it might reassure people to say, okay, they hired the right people to do the right job, right?
I do think that even if it's in an unofficial capacity, Alan Adham will probably still be like someone that the developers of Classic WoW will go to and be like, was this what you did? Like, what was the philosophy on this? Maybe that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was like the driving force for a lot of the concept, like the conceptual work of how the game was designed back then.
I can't wait for a moment, like a Scooby-Doo-esque moment, when we discover that Viv was one of the Classic developers this whole time, and the unnamed studio was Blizzard, and we ripped the mask off of his head, and he's like, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you crafty kids.
You mean Niel?
Oh, sorry, Niel, I mean, sorry, yes.
That reminds me of earlier.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would love to work at Blizzard, man. It's in California. There's fresh oranges every morning. It's just perfect.
Viv, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say earlier you said that I was the one talking about drinking profusely, but it was Palfuris.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry, I've gotten a few names mixed up. Yes, Palfuris. Well, let's end on that note. Now, Palfuris, let's go out with a bit of fun. On a scale of 1 to 11, how drunk are we going to get at BlizzCon?
Oh gosh, that really all depends on if you feel like carrying me. I mean, no, I mean, I think within reason. I would prefer to stay out of jail, so I'd say a solid 9.5. Right. That would probably be good with me. What do you think?
No, that's fair. We'll take it a notch down below jail and public nudity, and we'll figure out a nice happy medium.
Excellent. I have no problem playing darts and completely missing the dartboard. That's probably about on par. So that to me feels like a 9.5.
I'm going to expect you guys to have perfected by the time BlizzCon comes around. One of you has to do the human male dance and the other has to do the gnome male dance. Wild drunk.
Oh, I'd love it. And speaking of darts, we'll get to the point where at the Hilton bar late at night, and I want to yell out something like, oh, Palfuris, you want to play some darts? Yeah, I got the darts. Oi, how's it cost us? Turn around, we need a dartboard. So we'll see how belligerent I get.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it so much.
Okay, guys, we're going to need some videos of that, man, like a daily vlog of drunk Palfuris and Josh. Come on, man.
We'll see what we can do.
I do plan on smuggling bourbon into the con every day, but it'll be in my stomach, so we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Well, look, on that note, how about this? I haven't given my prediction, so screw you all. I'll tell you all what I think. I think that we are getting a release date. I'm sticking to my guns on June 4, 2019. I also think that, as I've said, I think we're getting updated textures, updated spell effects. I think that there are going to be some changes in the game, as many of the devs have said, but I think the changes are not going to be what I term as core gameplay changes, and I also think that the changes that are coming are not going to be detectable in the demo. And the reason I say that is that I've been saying for a while now that I expect retuning and changing of events, things like the AQ war effort items and things like that. I'm really hung up on these words, the classic or the vanilla experience, that have been ringing in my head lately from, the time that we got the announcement all through these developer interviews that we've been talking about, the classic experience. How do you redeliver the classic experience? Well, you got to make that game a little bit tough. and you're going to have to make some things mysterious. So I think that's some of the, what I would say, non-core gameplay changes might be coming our way, and we won't find out about them in the demo. We'll find out when we start doing dungeons and raids and what have you. Now, what else do I think is coming? I also think that I think something big is coming as well. One of you mentioned that you wouldn't be shocked if we got some, eyebrow raising or shocking news regarding Classic. I think that's coming too. I've alluded to in an earlier episode to the fact that I got a cryptic message from someone who is somewhat in the know. And again, it's not a leak. It's not saying anything outrageous. All they told me was, man, I've got some inside information. I wish I could tell you, but you're going to have to wait for BlizzCon. Look forward to it. And when I read into that coming from this person, I initially read it as a release date. And that's just me. I think that we're getting something big in the way of that release date, or perhaps something more like, you guys have alluded to as well. So I think we've gotten one big bombshell BlizzCon, BizCon again. I'll just start referring to it as BizCon. And, I think we're getting a big bombshell at the actual Classic panel during BizCon too. So those are some of my predictions. Now, here's another prediction. It's going to be an absolute fucking blast, and I cannot wait for it. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Palfuris, you and I have talked about we're going to be there. We're going to try and get back to everyone in the Discord when we can. We're going to try and get some content happening from the actual venue. Viv, you're going to be watching online via the virtual ticket. I hope you enjoyed that experience, as many people around the world will be. And Niel, you'll be watching keen as with that hawk eye of yours, knowing what you know within the industry and seeing what kind of technical limitations or things that they've overcome, and what they've done with the demo. So everyone, thank you so much. Say goodbye, or in turn, Palfuris, go for it.
Adios, friends. Thanks for having me.
Viv, hit me up.
Can't wait to see Countdown to Kisses at BizCon and see what all happens.
It should be fun. Neil?
Yeah, guys, it was a blast. Hoping to do this again soon.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll speak to you later. And that's the call with the gang done. And thank you so much again to everyone involved. Palfuris, Viv, and Niel. Every one of them is quite vocal over at the Countdown to Classic Discord. So if you enjoyed a particular take someone had and would like to discuss it further with them, then please do feel free to join up and say hello to the guys over there. We really are a friendly bunch, and we talk a hell of a lot of Classic. So please come and say hello at the Countdown to Classic Discord. I just want to particularly thank all three of those guys individually. Palfuris does such an amazing job as a moderator of the Discord and has been a great friend of the show and to me and my girlfriend, Dookie Bear, the other great mod over there at the Discord. And he has just been so wonderful since coming aboard incredibly early on in proceedings. And I couldn't be more thankful to have such a fun, engaging person involved with the show. Next, we have Niel, my mysterious go-to source for a comment from within the gaming industry. He's always happily answered the call when I've needed him, and is such a delightfully insightful and pleasant voice every time that he's on the show. And it will far from be the last time that you hear from him, so thank you again, Niel. And finally, Viv. Whilst only being a relatively recent fan of the show, Viv has come on board in the last few months and has come to epitomize everything about the show's fan base through active, respectful chat in the Discord, and just being there for me as a friend to chat at any time as well. So a big thank you to all three of you. And in saying that, it's not just those three that help the show. It's all of you listening right now. I wouldn't be going to BlizzCon or be receiving a media pass if it wasn't for your continued support of the show. So thank you for that. But if I could just shout out a few people I'd particularly like to thank for everything that you do for Countdown to Classic, just quickly let me rattle off a short list of names in no particular order. Dookie Bear, Tsunami, Jay, Taladrill, Seven Winters, Ale, Grogor, Summerlin, Marky Mark, Def Camp and Melderon, Deadly Strike, Hellbop, Minoru, Mike, Funk Nasty, Nostalgia Dad, PWJ, Rarebit, Rinchan, Super Soaker, The Anton, Tian SG, Vika and Wilson Ma, and anyone who has ever called into the show. And I know I've likely forgotten someone important there, but please don't take it personally. There's just so many of you who have helped in so many ways, and I just wanted to take this moment to really deliver a heartfelt thank you. And I hope to see more of you you as Countdown to Classic pushes on. But with all of that mushiness out of the way, let's get back to what we do best here at Countdown to Classic, and that's talking classic. So let's get to it with Memory Lane. In Memory Lane, Countdown to Classic reads some of the listener submissions in regards to their fondest or funniest memories from back in the day with World of Warcraft. So we start with listener Barcode, who tells us this. Here's my story on how my love for twinking came about. I was in the military during vanilla, so I couldn't dedicate a lot of time to raiding, and to be completely honest, I had no idea if twinking was a thing in World of Warcraft. I just know I did it a lot while playing Diablo 2. It was an awesome trolling device I fell in love with when I was in high school, waiting for my friends to come home and log in. So what sparked me to initiate my first twink experience was a run that I did to help out some low-level guildmates. They were getting camped by Alliance scum at the foot of the trail of SFK, until I came along with my 60 warrior. Fast forward to the end of the run. A bunch of melee gear dropped, and none of it could be used from the lobbies I was running with, which were all casters. It wasn't until we killed Aragal and he dropped the Shadowfang sword that I began to think about twinking in World of Warcraft. The combination of all this low-level gear I had in my bag, and having just experienced the Alliance camping my low-leveled fellow Hordes, I thought about doing the unthinkable. Or at least that's what I thought it was at the time. I said my goodbyes and was thanked for the run, but not before I asked someone to hold all this gear I just got. I logged off and made my first alt, which was a troll rogue, and transferred all the gear to this newly created beast in the works. At first I was just thinking that I'll level up and camp SFK all day once I was able to equip all this gear that I got. But then I remembered all the other gear from other instances that I could get. So shortly after leveling up a bit, I logged onto my warrior and started researching Thoughtbot and other search engines at the time to figure out where to get all my low-level gear from. Fast forward a few months, because of work and having a limited time to play, I'd spent virtually all my time finding all the gear that I needed for my rogue. I spent hours researching all the best gear from instances. I read into all the low-level quests for item rewards. I scanned the loot tables of the events that had occurred. The fishing tournament was the best one, obviously. My whole WoW career was dedicated to figuring out how to twink this bad boy out. And as time went by, running through the cities and checking the auction house, I hadn't witnessed any form of twinking yet. Once I'd finally accumulated all my rogue's gear, I leveled up and did the quests that I needed to do to be fully decked out at level 19. Now, mind you, this was all before battleground queues were a thing. You had to run to the battleground portals to queue up. But I didn't go to the battlegrounds first. Instead, I ran my troll ass to Alliance territory and wreaked havoc for like 2 gameplay days straight. I had parties of Alliance on me trying to kill my rogue, only to fail time and time again. This was my life in WoW for the coming years. I had logged on to play my twink to ruin low-level experiencing for the Alliance. And once queuing for Battlegrounds was a thing, I had brought endless victories for the 19 bracket. Over time, I had made many twinks in many other brackets, but none had such a time sink as my 19 rogue, which had over 1 million player kills recorded. But this took over 2 expansions to accomplish. Next we have this one from listener Nathan, who tells us this. Hi, my name is Nathan, and my original main was a troll priest on Gorgonash. I was a noob and leveled as holy the entire way. Burning Crusade was already out, so at 58 I went to Outlands. While I was in my 60s, I got an urgent message from a random player offering 100 gold to heal a group doing lower Blackrock Spire. They were all undergeared, and it was a challenge for me to keep them alive. When we got to Shadow Hunter Vosh Gajin, someone accidentally pulled early. This became the ultimate test for me as a healer. I had to use every ability I had, sometimes downranking to save mana, and time out everything with precision. I kept renew on everyone, put power word shield shields on anyone who was close to death, and had to choose between lesser heal, greater heal, flash heal, and even a few binding heals to keep myself alive. I had to pop mana pots and was using bandages when out of mana. It was one of the most challenging and satisfying experiences I've had in World of Warcraft. When it was all said and done, we downed the boss. Everyone was alive, and as we looked around at one another in disbelief, one of the party members said, "Well, it looks like we got our money's worth." Next we have listener Viking Blair, who tells us this. I have a few stories for memory lane, and one could be anger management, quote unquote, love the warrior pun. And thanks for the show, Josh. Great job. Keep it up. So my first story is that I played a female night elf hunter that was named Arwina, and I am a big Lord of the Rings fan, and Arwen was taken. Anyways, I was level 25-ish, and I was in Menethil Harbour, and a dwarf paladin started to legit flirt with me and was being like super nice. So, like the a-hole I was, I decided to catfish this guy and accept all the gifts he would give me. Even going so far as to grab some cute girl pics off MySpace to email him as my pic. I feel bad now, but I was able to buy my mount at 40. If that was you on Kill Jaden, I'm sorry. I was 19. I remember when the gates of AQ opened as well, and it was epic. But the most epic patch for me is when Alterac Valley came out, and we had no clue what we were supposed to do. On my server, we had a single AV match last more than 24 hours. It was amazing. The Alliance ended up losing, but it was an amazing, epic event. Now for my angry post. I hated that the Warsong Gulch queue-up area was in Ashenvale for Alliance, and it was a contested zone. The Horde's queue-up area was in the Barrens, which is Horde territory. So the Alliance could get ganked by the Horde while waiting, but we couldn't kill the Horde while waiting. So yeah, that was a pile of bullshit. Anyway, thanks again, and in my best Aussie accent, good on you, mate. Next we have this story from listener Nagal, who says this. One of my most memorable vanilla WoW moments was from my first 5 minutes in the game. I created my first character, an orc rogue, and loaded into Durotar for the first time. My buddy who convinced me to get the game set out from Orgrimmar to come and meet me, and in the meantime I decided to do the first quest. I'd never played an MMO before, and when the first NPC told me to talk to a guy to the west, I got lost immediately. The guy I needed to talk to was like 10 steps away, but in my confused wandering, I found the secret passage in the mountains and fell into the water between Durotar and the Barrens. I swam to the closest shore I saw and found myself in a cool little goblin town. When my buddy arrived in the Valley of Trials, he asked where I was, and I read the nameplate on the screen. Ratchet. I'll always remember how perplexed and confused he was as to how I ended up in Ratchet within 5 minutes of starting, when it's quite a long walk on foot. Next we have this one from listener Rarik, who says this. When the honor system first released, I had a hard time trying to figure it out at first. I knew that killing enemy players could get you honor, but the description on the official WoW website explicitly stated that PvP-enabled non-player characters in your level range would also give you honorable kills. I figured killing NPCs would be easier than players, so I set out to raise a hill and started killing some guards, as they were PvP-enabled non-player characters in my level range. I killed a few, and was disappointed to find out that I was not granted any honor kills. Did I do something wrong? Was the honor system bugged? Did it not update in real time? I was confused, but my thoughts were interrupted by a group of Horde players coming to defend Razor Hill. I ducked out of there, disappointed. As I found out later, killing city leaders or certain NPCs in Alterac Valley might count and give you honor, but generic guards and other NPCs that fit the original criteria do not. Blizzard lied to us. And finally we have this one from listener Ale, who tells us this. Later on in Classic, I was leveling an alt in Feralas when I happened upon a real legend of Warcraft, Gurgthok. Nowadays you may know him as Ian, aka the lead developer of Modern WoW. At that time, he was raid leader for the cutting-edge guild Elitist Jerks. Seeing as I was Alliance and he was Horde, I maintained a safe distance from him as we were both killing the same mobs, the water elementals along the shore. By this point, he had acquired the legendary Hand of Ragnaros, which was kind of funny as he was notorious for being purely a restoration shaman. I was of the opinion to let sleeping dogs with legendary hammers and best-in-slot raid gear lie, and we are going about our business, with me continuing to stay a considerable distance away. After a while, a group of 3 other Alliance show up to also kill some elementals. They immediately start complaining about how a level 60 Horde has killed them all. So unfair! We need to level! What I witnessed next was a massacre of epic proportions. Not happy with the situation, these 3 scrappy level 49s decided to take matter into their own hands, PvP style. They engaged Gurgthok 3 versus 1 when he had sat down to drink. What they didn't know was that he was an incredibly skilled player who walked softly and carried a big orange hammer. He almost immediately killed the first player, a warrior, with a Wind Fury and Fireball proc, while simultaneously landing an Earth Shock on the healer. He caught the Warlock getting too close and caught up with a Frost Shock and got him down with another Wind Fury hit. With 2 down, he engages the Paladin healer. The Warlock soulstones and starts dotting him and kiting, but is unable to land any fears through Gurgthok's totems. Gurgthok is able to whittle down the Paladin and stay topped off. I believe he was farming in mostly resto gear, before again finishing the Warlock off with shocks at range. At this time, I've just been watching the whole battle go down and haven't taken part, but I had sat down to eat. However, after wiping the floor with these guys, he mounted up and came straight for me. I figured that I was a goner and resigned to not fighting back. I had seen what he could do. However, he ended up just running right past to an elemental behind me and continued farming. The Alliance group was beyond upset at these developments and tried to tarnish my reputation in game chat, but nothing came of that. Turns out that not ganging up on him may have earned me a small bit of mercy. And thank you so much to everyone for those fantastic memory lane submissions. Just hitting up a little bit of cleanup. As you know, on the show, I like to correct small mistakes that come up as we go along. And the first one comes to me from listener Sakuraba, who pointed out, Josh, you didn't say anything about the Shrine of the Fallen Warrior in the Barons episode when you talked about the lore. And that's exactly right. And I do apologize, Sakuraba. That was not in any of the information that I gave out. And quite frankly, I didn't know anything about the Shrine of the Fallen Warrior, having not spent that much time in the Barons myself. So how about we touch on it now? And for those who are interested, the Shrine of the Fallen Warrior is located on a small hill in the Barrens southwest of the Crossroads. To reach it, players must follow a ridge to the southeast, and halfway up the hill we'll find the base of a mound. The short trail will lead directly to the shrine. The Shrine of the Fallen Warrior is a memorial to Michael Coiter, a Blizzard employee who sadly passed away during the development of World of Warcraft. The base of the stone obelisk is engraved with the initials MK, and the orc is an exact copy of Coiter's beta character, Twin Cruiser. If a player visits the memorial, they will find a spirit healer named Coiter in front of the shrine. Now, thank you very much for pointing that out. I do apologize for that mistake there, Sakuraba, and I'm always happy to be corrected on those ones. So please do keep the corrections coming, everyone. But I wanted to end this one on a very interesting note pointed out by Countdown to Classic regular Minoru, who points out the following in a relatively lengthy submission. But please do listen up to this one, because this is a really good one. I have an addendum to my submission that was read in episode number 52 about PvP versus PvE servers, where I stated that normal servers, colloquially known as PvE servers, were the intended game experience. I said it back then, and I'll say it again. The Horde and the Alliance were not at war during vanilla. So, why bring this up again? Because of a key piece of evidence that was brought to my attention recently. During the Horde Onyxia attunement questline, you are tasked with dealing with Dalrend Blackhand's Dark Horde and the Black Dragonflight. At one point, an entire quest of the chain called What the Wind Carries is dedicated to a conversation between your character and Thrall. I've trimmed the conversation down to the important bits. If you're going to read this on the podcast, Josh, rev up those vocal cords. Okay. Thrall exclaims, And I'm actually not going to try to do my horrible Thrall voice because my voice is absolutely fried after a week of drinking and boozing it up in Melbourne. So I'll just say it as best I can. It would appear as if the influence of the Black Dragonflight had extended beyond the borders of the Burning Steppes and into the kingdom of Stormwind itself. The usurper has since been unmasked and ousted. Your character asks, "Usurper?" Thrall nods. Indeed, the broodmother of the Black Dragonflight had used illusion and trickery to disguise herself as a member of the royal court. Worse yet, she has assumed control of the current High Lord of Stormwind, Bolvar Fordragon. It is no wonder that such foolish military decisions had been made. The movement of Alliance forces as of late had left us scratching our heads. We now understand that the Black Flight was attempting to divide the Empire, destroy it from within. Your character responds, "With all due respect, War Chief, why not allow them to be destroyed? Does this not strengthen our position?" Thrall laughs. "So much to learn still. You are too young to remember the wars and bloodshed of ages past, too young to remember the burden of the curse carried by our people. Our position with the Alliance right now is a tenuous one. Skirmishes and smaller battles do take place, but there is peace. Something our people have not known for millennia. Would you give this up and plunge us into the maw of chaos again, but against a new foe, one that will not rest until we are destroyed?" And so there you have it, folks, straight from the War Chief's mouth, from one of the most important quest lines, no less. Your character asks the War Chief of the Horde if the Black Dragonflight should be allowed to destabilize the Alliance, and Thrall says no. The whole point of the Horde killing Onyxia was to prevent further conflict with the Alliance. If a Horde player did the Onyxia attunement chain and still thinks the Horde and the Alliance are still at war, they weren't paying attention. So, big thank you to Minoru for that post. I found that really interesting, and I must admit that is a pretty big piece of evidence in the argument that there was no war, or at least outright war, between the Alliance and the Horde at the time of World of Warcraft, despite what we get in the voiceover of the opening cinematic. So who knows? Let me know if people still disagree with Minoru's take. Write into the show and let me know if that really grinds your gears and you've got a differing opinion on that one. I would love to hear it. It's something, quite frankly, that I think we could turn into a bit of a running theme here. Do you think there was actually an official war in World of Warcraft? Let's find out with some more listener submissions along the way. But that's the show for the day, everyone. Countdown will be back with you at the start of next week for another interview, and this week's interviewee is someone I'm really, really excited to bring you. I just locked in the interview today. Here's hoping and fingers crossed that it all goes well, and we will be talking at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday night. That's 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you want to tune in live, you will likely be able to hear that over at my Twitch channel. I'm pretty sure I'm going to stream that one. And please do jump in for the live chats. They're a lot of fun, and I'd love to see more of you there. But that will be on the show on Monday, and again, I'm really looking forward to it. This is someone who many of you may well have heard of, and it's just I don't want to give too much away, but I really am keen to do this one. But anyway, just before I let you go, I want to shout out to some very dedicated patrons of Countdown to Classic. So shout out to the gang: Flowsy B, Palfuris, Permadrunk, Rarebit, Romani, Tsunami, The Anton, Wilson Ma, and Velarco. Thank you so much again for your phenomenal support of the show. Countdown to Classic would not be the same without your support. Also, a big thank you to supporters Bossman764, Hurlbert, Goodkisser, Myrtlebanks, Purgatos81, Tim B, and Zudamos as always. And I should say, Tim B, if you're listening, let me know if you have a gamer name. I've just got your Patreon name there, and please do let me know if you want to change that up. But anyway, that's it from me for the day. So signing off from Down Under, as always, have a great weekend, everyone.